Hello and welcome to National Park Wild. I'm Eric. The United States has hundreds upon hundreds of beautiful places. I've been fortunate enough to see quite a few of them, and in this video, I will be ranking what I think are the top 10 most beautiful places you can see in the United States. Before we begin, subscribe for more national park content. There's quite a bit more on the way. Let's get right into the ranking. Number 10 is Crater Lake in Oregon. Crater Lake is a stunning sight to look at. In pictures it looks nice and all, but once you're there, you really get hit by how vast this massive caldera is. It formed from a mountain collapsing, not from an actual crater, and the blue is so pure because of the fact that this is entirely snow melt and rain. There is no sort of inflow, so you're just looking at the deepest blue you'll ever see at any lake, as far as I've seen. There's an island in the middle. You can see several different viewpoints going around it like a canyon. It's breathtaking to look at. There's a lot to do in this park. This is a national park. There's hiking. There's a lot of other things, but just standing in front of that lake, what more could you possibly ask for? It's stellar, and I highly recommend getting here. It's not the most popular site, but I think it should be. It deserves to be seen by your eyes. Number 9 is the Tetons. Similar to Crater Lake, the Tetons in Wyoming are part of Grand Teton National Park, where you can do hiking, floating on the Snake River, wildlife viewing, and so much more. But just looking at these mountains is all that you need. They are similarly massive. You're looking up at such a fascinating peak. The shape is like nothing you've seen, and from all the different angles with different biomes in front of it, that means something. Seeing John Moulton Barn is iconic, and there are plenty of other views that are just as stellar, and I highly recommend seeing as much of them as you can. Even if you don't do anything else in the park, I can see this being one of your favorites, just for how phenomenal these mountains are. There's so much to see in beautiful Wyoming, honestly. And the fact that this is only number 9 speaks to how many unbelievable sights there are in the United States, and I can't wait to get into more of them. Number 8 is the Na Pali Coast on the island of Kauai in Hawaii. This is the Hawaii site that made the list. There are plenty of beautiful places there. You can see Mauna Kea, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, Haleakala Summit, but Na Pali Coast, for me, blows them out of the water. It's like a desert-type national park. It's like Zion. You're looking up, if you're in the water, at these unbelievably large orange cliffs, waves crashing on them, lush forests on different sides of them. You can enter some caves. Some music videos have been filmed in this one cave where there's a rock in the middle because of how fantastic it is. And if you hike, you look down at this water. Look out to see the whales and dolphins swimming around. See the cliffs from above. Either view is unforgettable. It's one of the most excellent places to see any sort of natural scenery. And I think Kauai is the most beautiful of the Hawaiian Islands, mainly as a result of this. Definitely worth getting to. Number 7 is Grand Prismatic Spring in Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone has so much to see. It is my favorite national park. I love the Grand Canyon, Old Faithful, Lamar Valley, but I had to give Grand Prismatic Spring the spot on this list. It is simply stunning. One of the most beautiful things I've ever laid eyes upon. The color is just fascinating. Seeing the blue of Crater Lake in a geyser with yellows and oranges and reds surrounding it, and the steam rising up from it, getting the view from the Fairy Falls Overlook is an absolute must. And it's a marvelous sight to look at. I would say, while it is very popular undoubtedly, I think it deserves more popularity than anything else in Yellowstone, even if it's less well known than something like Old Faithful. Therefore, definitely one of the best sights in all of America. Number 6 is the Grand Canyon. Really upping the scale here. The Grand Canyon is arguably the most famous natural site in the country. And for good reason. It is absolutely enormous. Every view gives you a different perspective that just goes on forever. And if you go into the canyon, you will be rewarded with other unbelievable views. You have the spectacular Phantom Ranch, and as you go further into the canyon toward the Colorado River, the overlooks get more and more intimate and interesting. The perspective of the walls you look at from above change in the same way they did with the Poly Coast, but you can climb them more easily here. And seeing just this massive creation of Mother Nature is really the most important thing. I think the best views and experiences in the Grand Canyon come from within it, but even a single glimpse of this from above could be enough to put it in your top 10. It is one of the greatest sights in America, no doubt. Number 5 is Zion Canyon. At Zion National Park in Utah, this one I think is even more impressive than the Grand Canyon. The colors pop more, the rocks seem more uniquely sculpted, and even though it's smaller, it doesn't feel that way, because if you're looking at Angel's Landing or Observation Point, it still seems to go on forever. The rocks are just that amazing. There are very few sites quite as magnificent as this one. As far as desert parks go, I think this is as beautiful as they come. And yes, that means wonderful places, Delicate Arch, Big Bend National Park, they did not make the list. I had to narrow this down very much so. So many places were in contention. But I had to give a spot to Zion. Zion Canyon is just perfect. And there are so few ways it could be made better in terms of a trip to a place with scenery, but there are still 4 places I haven't mentioned. Number 4 is Yosemite Valley in the wonderful Yosemite National Park, found in California. Tunnel View is one of the most iconic views in the nation, and for good reason. Looking at El Capitan, Half Dome, these other granite cliffs, it's unique. There is no other site in the nation like it. Nothing else looks like these kinds of mountains. And being lush surrounding it, I adore it. And the hikes you can take through the valley, Upper Yosemite Falls, Mist Trail, the shorter Bridal Veil Falls, looking at Glacier Point, Half Dome, the top of that, every view is among one of the best in the nation. This is a very large site similar to Grand Canyon and Zion Canyon, where it's not one small thing you stop at the way you would for, say, Grand Prismatic Spring. But that's one of the special things about it. There is so much to enjoy about it. And if we're talking solely about what you can see, I think it's very close to number 1. And this top 3 was very tight contention, though I do have, without a doubt, them set out. Number 3 is Grinnell Glacier Overlook in Glacier National Park in Montana. This is one overlook. You access it through Highline Trail. You can climb up a fairly steep ridge, and you look down into a glacier. Behind you, you can look all the way back to the start of the park, Lake McDonald, and other mountains that start as just vibrant green forest, and at the very top are wonderful snowy peaks. What's most special, though, is the glacier itself. You have bright blue pools, the glacier, of course, the rocks you're standing on and the rocks you're looking down at, and, depending on weather, you can catch a rainbow like I did. And that was one of the most important views I've ever gotten in a national park. I loved it. Glacier National Park is one of the most stellar to look at. It is fantastic. And I would say, without a doubt, Grinnell Glacier Overlook is my favorite part of it, and that's why I had to get an extremely high spot on the list. Number 2 is Mendenhall Glacier in Alaska. Not far from Juneau, this list could have been all Alaska, if I'm being honest. Alaska is the most beautiful state for me, and there is so much to enjoy. Mendenhall Glacier is among the best you can experience there. Walking on this thing is unfathomable. It is expansive in a way few other things are in all of nature. You're surrounded by grand rocky mountains with waterfalls going down the way you might be at Yosemite. The snow is all sorts of different colors from the varying biomes and such. You can see a crystal clear stream running through certain parts, waterfalls going through, caves of ice. This is a very tough one to get to, but it's one of the most rewarding as a result. I think everyone should put this one on their bucket list if you haven't heard of it. It is an unbelievable experience, and I would say above everything else so far. Even though it's not in a national park the way everything else has been, it very much deserves that status in the sense that national parks are the highest status, and therefore, I think it deserves to be visited by all national park lovers. But there's still one more that I think is the site that defines America. Number 1 is Denali, the mountain in Denali National Park in Alaska, the most prominent mountain in the world. And looking at the images, it is prominent indeed. Surrounded by a relatively flat valley with some dark gray smaller mountains around it, you have the massive white peak. It's snowy almost all the way up. You can see the massive rocks jutting out of it. It's not a perfect shape in any way, and that's what makes it so unique. No matter how close or far you are from the mountain, on a clear day, it is the most beautiful thing I've laid eyes upon. Any view of it, all the perspectives, are wonderful. The best are as you get further along the main park road, even though you can get a good glimpse at Denali State Park and plenty of other great places, and it's just unbeatable. This mountain alone makes Denali one of my favorite national parks. The rest of the park is excellent too, but this mountain is spectacular, and I highly recommend anyone who is planning a trip to try to get to a national park, I think you should prioritize trying to get to Denali some point in your life. It is simply that beautiful. Thank you for watching this list. I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below your favorite places in America for natural scenery. Subscribe for more content. I'll see you next time.